So, sir, I feel that research in India, it is still an emerging field. And one of the sole
Yeah.
reasons for that is that the pay scale in India for researchers are not that great. And that is one reason why students are not encouraged to, go ahead in the field of research. Dr. Anil Behal is one of the most influential people on LinkedIn in the field of research. He's a phenomenologist, also a consultant who helps students get into the field of research. I have taken his course and I know that man is a treasure trove of wisdom. You will definitely enjoy this conversation. If you wish to get into the research field or if you are already in it, he has talked about topics like grounded theory, IPA, and a lot more. What value will India hold in the upcoming years for research? And it's going to be a very interesting conversation. It's an insight for you all in the field of research. I'm going to get more people from the field of research so that you can enjoy this podcast. Do share it with your friends. You can also hear me up on Spotify with the honest discussion series. Thank you.
So go ahead.
Sure,
What
sir.
would you like to ask me?
Okay, so sir, welcome to the honest discussion series. This is your host Rasleen Grover. And so usually I run people through whom I'm having on the show. But as you've got a very interesting personality and also a very interesting story, I want you to introduce yourself to my audience, what you have done, the kind of incredible work in the field of research.
Okay. All right. So I'm, as you would call, a late bloomer. Okay. So I went back for higher studies much later in life than some of you will. Some of you that are in your early to mid 20s are already doing your master's degrees, they're already in PhD programs
Yes.
and all of that kind of good stuff. For me, all of that came much later in life. Um, as a matter of fact, I earned my PhD back in 2014
Okay.
when I was still in my 60s. Okay, so you can imagine, how much time I have lost and how much time I'm making up for now. So, in a manner of speaking, what I'm doing right now is doing serious catch up, knowing that I'm not going to be around forever, right? So, some
Absolutely.
of the stuff that I screwed up on earlier in life
Yeah.
that I did not do well, I'm doing serious catch up now. So, but that apart, what happened was with the pandemic. The pandemic, as you know, I'm based in the U.S.,
Yes.
right? And we started hearing about the pandemic sometime late December, early January. And of course, the Trump administration did not do anything about it. They just sat on their, you know what,
Yes.
and did not want to do any serious interventions, did not want to do anything developmentally for the and they just was caught in their own la la land that this will magically go
Absolutely.
away. This
Absolutely.
has been a serious pandemic. So as I started to see that I'm going to be homebound, when the lockdown started and there were no opportunities to go out other than to the grocery store all the time, wear masks and everything else, it became really difficult for me. So I said, what is it that I can do sitting at home, sitting in my little office at home, do to contribute to the field of research? Okay, I've worked so hard to earn my PhD, and it's a lot harder when you're
Absolutely.
older because you've
Absolutely.
got other responsibilities that you also have to take care of and all that. So then what I did was back in December of last year, I started to create videos. Now, what
Okay.
do I mean by that? So I would and the old fashioned way, I would do open a Zoom session and I would be talking. I would create a PowerPoint. I would be talking, delivering a presentation, and usually my presentations are from an hour to hour and a half. Some of them can go longer than that also. So it was one to many, right? In other words, it was not a Zoom meeting where I have like 25, 30 participants. It was basically just talking to the camera, right?
Okay. Okay.
And that was challenging in the beginning. But believe me, Rasleen, when I say this, that from that December first video that I posted, after that, in my YouTube channel, I have uploaded nearly 20 to 25
Wow.
lectures, presentations, conferences. Now, what did I do? What did that do? What it did was I'd gone through the rigor of earning a PhD myself, right? And research, as you know, I'm a qualitative researcher. I'm not into the quantitative. I'm not in the positivist camp. So I was very drawn to, or have been always very drawn to, phenomenology, grounded theory, IPA, interpretative phenomenological analysis. And I started to create for myself some intellectual capital, right? Not to earn money from it, right?
Definitely.
It was really purely to be able to give of myself to the community. And lo and behold, a community started developing around that. I didn't do anything other than share a link on LinkedIn and say, look, here's my YouTube channel, please go there. People started writing to me from there. Now, what's interesting is that starting around April or May of this year, a lot of folks from Generation Z, or Generation Z, as you would say, the younger generation, like people like yourself, born
Like me.
in 96, 97, or after, they started getting drawn to my ideas, my research, and things of that nature. So now I'd never previously interacted with very young people. I'm 68 years old. Now I have a very young spirit. I'm the spirit of a young boy. They're very lively, energized, and all that.
Absolutely.
But I'd never really, all my colleagues were either in their late 50s or 60s. So it was for the very first time that it was such a cross-generational communication that started to happen, where I did not know what I should say or do or not do when I'm communicating with somebody so much younger than me,
Yes.
you know? And I said, you know what? I'm going to take a chance. I'm going to take a risk. I will just be myself. Okay. And if it works for them, great. If it works for me, great. If not, we'll see. But I have not looked back a day since that time. I currently have, I am not kidding you, nearly 1,000.
Whoa, that's
Nearly 1,000. So from a total LinkedIn connection pool of nearly 8,000, I have nearly 1,900, so maybe shy of 1,900 young folks in the early to mid 20s communicating with me just as though they were communicating with one of their friends, one of their peers. And as you know, you've been part of many of my Zoom sessions, and you're part of the cross generational study, which we're very grateful to you for, because we need, obviously, in a cross generational study, we need people who are young, okay, who can understand what we are really talking about. Plus, we also need older people, okay, because you're doing, as you know, the interviews are between the very young people and the baby boomers. Let's call it baby boomers, late 50s to 60s. So as I started to develop this, I realized that I have an innate knack to communicate with very young people because I can relate to them. And in a very strange way, for me, it's coming back to where I was at one point in time, when I was your age. Things that I did not do, things that I could not do, or things that I did not accomplish. Um, it was very energizing for me to communicate with them. Now, I'll give you a quick example. Yesterday, we were doing a negative capability. That's my new study, negative capability, which was, as you know, it's a concept that was designed by John Keats, the famous English romantic poet, to describe a situation where someone's comfortable with knowing and not knowing. So it's the capacity to stay in mysteries, doubts, and uncertainties without irritably reaching after fact and reason. So kind of like Rasleen being in a dialectical tension.
Okay.
right?
Okay.
On the one hand, you want to do something. On the
Hmm.
other hand, you want to not do anything, to stay in that mode of knowing and not knowing. And as you well know, uh, a lot of breakthroughs in understanding, breakthroughs in knowledge and transformation occur when you are at the edge of knowing and not knowing. Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of the stuff, just fast forward. So I am now at a point where I'm interacting almost on a daily basis with very, very young people like yourself. And I am feeling so enriched by their ideas. Because when I was their age, believe me, I did not have the intellectual
Because sir, I feel that
acumen.
times were different, obviously, and with our time we have internet, we have so many resources available at our doorstep, so it has become more accessible for us to actually receive knowledge from all across the
Yes,
world. And firstly, I
yes,
just want to say that you're setting an inspiration for people out there who wish to pursue masters and PhD, in their mid 50s or 60s. And education has no age group, as we, keep on saying it. My first question to you is
okay.
mainly about how did you get into and how did you decide that you want to choose qualitative research and not the quantitative one?
Now that's a brilliant question. As you know, they're totally two different
Two different.
islands,
Yes,
almost,
definitely,
right? They're two
definitely.
different approaches, two different methodologies, two different. As a person, I am someone who wears his emotions, feelings, thoughts on my sleeve. I'm an extrovert, so I like to articulate, I like to verbalize how I feel inside, versus an introvert who likes to keep it inside and ruminate about it and reflect on it inside. So, because of my disposition, right, and because of my deep interest in thoughts, feelings, emotions versus just numeric data,
Okay.
right? Hardcore numeric data, the graphs, the charts. So don't get me wrong, I love to see the diagrammatic
Representation.
representation of numbers and figures, but they don't excite me. What excites me is the human mind. Okay, I try to understand what it is that it's like for someone who's experiencing such and such, right? Right. So, what is it like for an unwed mother, let's say, living in a single parent household, taking care of a child, right?
Mm.
Or what is it like for someone to be to feel marginalized in an LGBTQ community, right? Okay. And now beginning to see, so things of that nature, you can't research with data, numbers. You
Absolutely.
really have to have their thoughts, feelings,
There are a lot of
emotions. What
emotions
is it?
involved as well when you're doing such a research like a
Oh
qualitative
my
one.
goodness, big time.
Yeah.
That is the huge thing about phenomenology. As you know, that's my specialty.
Yes. So,
And in
so where one
phenomenology,
should draw a line between like not just getting away with the emotions and and realizing that we have to actually collect the data for research as well.
absolutely, you bring up a very, very important question. And that is why training for phenomenological interviewing, training for qualitative research interviewing is very different from sending 100, 200, 300 questionnaires in a quantitative study and
Absolutely.
having people respond to those questionnaires, right? You are removed from the your subjects, right? So so they're not interacting with you. The moment you start interacting with a participant, I mean a research participant that you're interviewing, it opens up a whole new can of worms, because
Hmm.
you don't know what you're going to be getting into. You ask a question and you may get an answer that you were not prepared for. So, in depth interviewing and semi structured interview requires a certain propensity, it requires a certain mindset. And so, even for our study, as you know, we had
Yes, sir.
to have researchers go through the process. Otherwise, they're not going to get a hang of what it is that they're going to be doing. So to draw a line, in other words, be aware of the fact that you are there to collect data, correct? You're not there as their therapist.
Hmm.
You're not there as their counselors. On the other hand, you if you suddenly run into something which appears to be a little tricky, how do you handle that situation? Do you become over empathic? Do you become totally oblivious to what they're saying?
Hmm.
How do you make them feel comfortable so that, guess what? You can collect data. You want, and data in case of qualitative research is different from quantitative data. It's
Absolutely.
non-numeric data. You're looking at their stories,
Hmm.
their thoughts, their feelings, their emotions, okay, that they're verbalizing in the form of a narrative to you, right? So, so that's where I feel that qualitative research is something that people feel a little shy getting into because
Hmm.
they don't know
Absolutely.
what the heck they're going to get hit with. It's very abstract, it's very convoluted, it's very out there,
Hmm.
like so many dots out there. How do you connect them together?
Because earlier, even I felt that you can't just have a proper qualitative research. And something has to be backed with numbers, something has to be backed with the facts. So you have to like combine a both quantitative and a qualitative research paper. But then after joining the research group, I realized that no, solely people can even write qualitative kind of a paper as well. And
Of
that is,
course.
yeah. So,
and
sir,
and and go ahead.
sir, I feel that research in India, it is still an emerging field. And one of the sole
Yeah,
reason for that is that the pay scale in India for researchers are not that great. And that is one reason why students are not encouraged to, go ahead in the field of research. So I just want to ask you how it is different in the US or in other countries. And because in India, the government is encouraging that there should be young researchers and innovators, but you will only have that once you actually give them a good standard of living and a good pay scale as well.
absolutely correct. Now, I'm speaking for myself here. I don't speak for the entire research community in the US, nor am I suggesting that I have full knowledge of the research community. Uh, Academics, by their very nature, academic positions, whether they're in the US or Australia or UK or now, it may be a little different in the West and it's different in the more affluent countries
Absolutely.
where education is considered really vital. Okay, so a professor starting out, I'm just giving you an example, right? So a professor who's on a tenure track in the US may actually start out in their high 70s, low 80s.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
And if you have had a really stellar degree, a stellar background, you may start off even in six figures,
Hmm.
right?
Okay.
That's unthinkable. So if you translate six figures like it's 75 lakhs, right, or 74 lakhs in India, it's
Hmm.
probably unthinkable, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Yeah. So they'll probably start you at a low
Hmm.
25,
Hmm.
20, 24, 25. So you see the huge difference there.
Absolutely,
Uh,
absolutely.
and that partly has to do with the awareness for research, but it also has to do, and like you said, you bring up a very important point. The So in India, what tends to happen is, and I say this with no bias, so I'm not
Absolutely.
I'm not keeping myself as separate. I'm very much a desi,
Yes.
very much an Indian like the rest of everybody.
Yes.
So I totally relate to that. But what tends to happen in India is like the flavor of the day.
Hmm.
They get excited about something. They hear, oh, we got to have more researchers. And I'm talking like things happening in the UGC.
Yes, yes,
They'll say, oh,
absolutely.
we don't have enough researchers. So we have to have more researchers doing this. Look at the West. Look at what's happening out there. But what they don't understand, and as you well said, if you don't give them the means to even support themselves decently, what kind of incentivizing are you really doing there for them? Right.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm talking about, let's say, even at IIMs that people start out at, the salaries there are not that high,
It is not so.
I'm sure.
As
I,
compared to the
I,
West, it is nothing, to be very honest.
is nothing. And then on
Absolutely.
top of that, they have the pressure for research, publications. Publish, you probably heard of publish or perish, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So they have to publish. If they're not publishing, they'll be out of their jobs. So so this is a major predicament, I'll tell you. And
Yes, sir.
and to be very honest with you, and I've interacted with a number of PhDs. All the time I do that as part of my from India. The problem is that they're so bright,
Mm.
but they're not getting the kind of
Exposure.
rigor or the
Mm.
training
Mm.
from their faculty, from their research chairs. It's like, oh, kahat hai na, bhed chal, right?
Yes,
Everybody goes
absolutely.
to
Mm.
do the same thing over and over again, the same beaten down track. And I've talked to so many of these young students like yourself who are so bright, so intellectually gifted. And they're saying, sir, I'm attending your seminars and I come away so enlivened, so much knowledge I get, so much experience I get, and I'm able to be myself. When I'm in a seminar for them, they are going through their presentation, they don't even let me talk.
Absolutely, sir. It's not
So,
at all
and
interactive.
it's not interactive. It's too didactic. Everything is about, okay, the professor will be doing the presentation and the student just has to take it. It's kind of like, in the banking system of education, the educators deposit the knowledge, right? And
Mm.
students
Mm.
write a check
Write it
to
down. Yeah,
draw the knowledge. So,
absolutely.
so it's a very different ball game altogether. But I definitely think that there's tremendous scope for research. Actually, believe it or not, since 2016, and that was 2 years after I finished my PhD, I
Mm.
started to send out feelers to a lot of institutes in India, research institutes, and I was invited to do nearly 24 in-depth 2 day to 2 to 3 day research workshops in
Okay.
India. I've done them at all the leading institutes like TIS and ISEC
Okay.
and Symbiosis, NMIMS, NIMHANS, Bangalore.
All right.
So I've seen up close the wealth, the knowledge base, and the pool, and the excitement within this community. But what tends to happen is, like you said, they can be excited about research, but they're also thinking, okay, so if I go through this whole grind,
Mm. Mm.
spend lakhs
Mm.
of my money on this, what am I going to be earning at the end?
Absolutely,
So
sir.
they get drawn to other fields where they feel that, yeah, ye magajmari isme karne ki jagah, let me do an MBA,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
After an MBA, I can get a package of, if I get it from a decent school, package of
Absolutely, sir.
35, 40 lakhs.
Absolutely.
Why should I struggle with 25 lakhs,
Mm.
right? So all of this stuff becomes very relevant. So I think that the changes will come, but they'll come very gradually.
And what do you
Um,
think the major difference in the education department in the US and in India, and especially like for masters and for PhD? What are the things which you feel India lacks and which India should adapt from the West?
well, every institute in India they have their own ways of doing things, right?
Okay, yeah.
And what I'm finding is that because of the burgeoning presence of new, because of the exploding education sector in India, a
Hmm.
lot of business organizations
Hmm.
that had no clue about education
Hmm.
are are offering schools. Like the schools are mushrooming all over the place,
Hmm.
right? OPJ, or some other Ram Kishon, whatever school, and this and school. So all these educational, and I'm not being critical. I think they're serving a need. It's a great need they're serving, but they are still in the bureaucratic mentality.
Hmm.
And on the other hand, some of them are running these educational institutions as though they were running a business.
Absolutely.
Right? You cannot run an educational institution the way you run a business.
Hmm.
A business is all about profit and loss. On the other hand, These businesses are investing lakhs and crores in education, so they want a return also. So what? So to answer your question about what is lacking in the
Yeah.
Indian education system, I think what is lacking is the mentality,
Hmm.
the progressive mentality of education. Okay, and
Absolutely.
it starts at the grassroots level. Believe it or not, it
Absolutely.
starts with your faculty who are out there standing in front of students. I've very rarely seen faculty totally mingling with students.
Hmm.
They want to create their academic distance.
Absolutely.
And I am the total opposite. I don't like that academic
We
distance. I
definitely
create
need
that.
more teachers like you, because in India, I feel it is more of like that I'm a teacher and you're a student. So they need to maintain that kind of a distance of, we are elder to you, we have more knowledge, and you're still a student, you've come here to learn. So they won't have a very friendly kind of a bond with the student. And for that, I feel even students really hesitate to really go out to them and ask about, how is it, how to do a certain project or something like that, because they're so involved academically in just the curriculum which the college has really provided them with. And that is something I feel Indian universities lack, which abroad I still feel they get a more practical exposure. I can talk about the bachelors. In India, we don't get to write a research paper in our curriculum. There is no research paper added in our curriculum. So if you want to get into research, you have to make your own effort. You can do courses from Coursera or other fields or other
Mhm,
websites, and then you can write your own research paper. So there's nobody to guide, even in the faculty of the college.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that is one
yeah.
major thing
So
which I feel.
yeah, so those are issues that are pretty serious issues, because if you cannot engage, I always say, you must have heard me say this before also, if you want to really capture the heart of someone,
Hmm.
or I'm sorry, capture the mind of someone. When I
Hmm.
say capture, I mean captivate, right? If you want to captivate someone's mind, reach their heart first, right?
Absolutely.
Because if they're not connected with you in their heart, they'll just attend the lecture because they have to attend your lecture. And they're really, their creativity, they're not enjoying what they're doing. And if you're not enjoying what you're doing, you're only going to be showing up as a warm body in a classroom, but not bringing your best foot forward, right?
Yes.
Into that learning process, and not interacting with your peers in the way that so there's a plethora of things that I can talk about
Hmm.
that. And I'm not suggesting you're sitting here and suggesting that things are wrong, that something is broken that needs to be fixed. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that there has to be a radical change
Change. Absolutely.
in the way people think about education in India,
So,
both
sir,
from the student standpoint and from the educator
okay.
standpoint.
So, sir,
Yeah.
recently we came up with new education policy 2020, in which we saw some major reforms in our education system, which will be implemented, they said, like by 2024. And
Mhm.
one of the key changes in that reforms was that introduction of research, which
Mm.
especially at the bachelor's level as well as school level as well. So you can
Okay.
start getting into research from your grade 11
Mhm.
or grade 12. So but I feel that with that kind of changes which they are implementing in their policy, I feel they need to have certain faculty as well who are into research and all, which I feel India still lacks. They don't have much of professors who are into research, or much of professors who have done their PhD in general. So, what do you feel? How will they implement such a major reform?
Okay, so you bring up a very important question, and as you were talking about this change, and I don't know what specifically that bill was that was recently passed by UGC or by the government or something. See, earlier what used to happen was, if you have a master's degree
Mm.
and you want to enter a PhD, they will first make you do the MPhil.
Yeah, yeah. MPhil is moved
Okay,
now. Yeah.
so the MPhil is removed. Thank God for that, because all
Mm.
over the world there is no such
Mm.
requirement.
Mm.
It was redundant, because
Mm.
what was the point of getting a student to learn basic foundational research courses in the MPhil curriculum when the same courses are going to be repeated in the PhD. So
Absolutely.
what was the point of doing that? Now, I can understand that they need to have some knowledge of research and everything else before they come in. But that I always thought was very crazy. So thank goodness they've now
Yeah,
removed
they've
that. So
removed.
any master's degree is
Mm.
still permitted.
Sufficient. Yeah.
Yeah. Now they still have a combined exam, which again, I'm not a big proponent of that,
Mm.
of this exam. I'll tell you the reason why. Because examinations can be aced by nerds. Okay. I'll give you an example. You want to enter IIM,
Mm.
like if you want a fellow program in management or a PhD program. Now the IIM bill was passed, so a number of IIMs can offer PhDs. They could not
Mm.
offer the PhDs earlier. They used to call them fellow program in management, right? FPMs.
Mm.
Excuse me. So now what has happened is, um, if you were to apply for an IIM FPM, doctoral student
Mhm.
position, you have to pass a test. I don't know what it is. It's a SCAT or something they have to
Okay,
do.
CAT. Yeah, CAT is the examination, but that is for MBA. I know that.
Okay, so there's another exam that
Okay.
they put you through. And I'm thinking, what is okay, you're putting them through a standardized test to understand what? To
Mm.
understand whether they have an understanding of subjects that they're not going to use
Mm.
in their PhDs. So the IIMs have a very different way of going about it. I do understand and I do recognize, for instance, if you apply for a PhD in the US, you have to have the GRE, right?
Yeah.
The Graduate Record
Yeah.
Examination. It's a basic examination, but it doesn't test you on actual really hardcore subjects
Mm.
like you would expect if you were applying for an MBA, or some such thing. So there are some nice changes that are occurring, and I'm sure that more changes will happen.
Mm.
But most importantly, it has to start at the grassroots level, because now, if
Absolutely.
as you know, with the pandemic, all of the classroom instruction
Mm.
has gone into online,
Online mode, yeah,
right?
remote.
Because nobody is attending classes. You cannot attend classes.
Mm.
And those people, those faculty members that were reticent or hesitant about um, online teaching,
Mhm.
were, now found themselves in trouble,
Absolutely so.
because it's a whole different ball game when you're teaching students online. You cannot, well, you can only see them
Mm.
uh, through the video camera, but how do you capture their attention? How do you capture their minds? I've attended some of these workshops just to see what was going on, and what I noticed there was, quite surprisingly, that they are so hell bent about delivering their PowerPoint
Hmm.
that they don't even interact with the students. They don't allow the students to interact with them.
I feel one of the reasons for that would also be like, especially through this online education system now with the pandemic, I've also realized few things, that what I lack and what my fellow friends lack is that we lack to communicate and to
Yeah,
make that connect with the teacher online. And same goes, with the teacher as well. And that is the sole reason for that, I feel, is we lack the basic soft skills to actually communicate.
soft skills, the
Yes,
communication skills.
communication skills, absolutely. We in India, we don't really emphasize, on uh, building soft skills and communication skills in our school level. And that is why I feel that eventually, once we get to college and then we have to actually go out there for MUNs and stuff like that, we struggle really hard to actually write
Right,
it down or speak. So
right.
which is like a major thing which I feel lacks in our country. What do you feel about it?
Well, again, I'm communicating, I'm speaking from my experience here,
Hmm.
okay?
Hmm.
I'm communicating with a number of you through my forums, through my sessions, through my workshops. And I think that you guys communicate so beautifully.
Hmm.
And not only in terms of how you're articulating your thoughts, but in terms of the thoughts that you're articulating, the profundity of your thoughts, and how you can hold complex topics and be able to talk about them from so many different perspectives, paradoxically. That to me is amazing. So here is a fertile pool of really strong students, and I hope somebody wakes up to their potential. Because if without that proper communication, see, the student professors might think, okay, so I'm only okay with communicating with Rasleen via
So
the
no,
classroom,
yes,
right?
yes.
After that, I don't have to have any contact with Rasleen. But
Mm.
I'm just taking your example, or
Yes.
anybody else.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that you go for a chit chat session,
Mm.
but you're human beings.
Mm.
You should communicate with students outside of your class to get to know what's happening in their world,
Mm.
how you can be of help to them, how you can
Absolutely.
nurture them. So, and I think what is critically missing. I think so. Communication is not just communication within the classroom, but
Mm.
also communicating outside the classroom, right? Whether it is in terms of, okay, extracurricular things happening in the college, where there's a drama being set up, or a seminar you guys are doing. I don't know what all you guys do now. Some new stuff, like, or run a symposium, or run something of that nature, where people can come in touch with one another. I think there's a hesitancy. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe it's just my own thinking. I think there's a hesitancy in some educators that, oh my goodness, what if I'm communicating with a young student, and if she says something about me, you know, my reputation could be trashed, right? Or if I
Can
say
be, yes.
something, if I say something that is a little sensitive and the student misconstrues it,
Mm.
right? As, oh, is this professor really coming on to me, right? So
Absolutely.
those are the kind of challenges that come up from time to time.
So,
Um, yeah, go ahead.
one advice to students out there to improve their communication skills and soft skills and to able to articulate their thoughts.
Absolutely. To be able to articulate, join more forums where
Okay.
you have a chance to interact not only
Mm.
with the facilitator, that's one piece, but to be able to interact with your students, other students, okay, your peers, okay. And
Mm.
communication improves when you communicate more,
More. Mm.
when you communicate your ideas, not just verbally, or not just via video like we are doing now, but also in through writing.
Mm.
Your communication, write articles, write short pieces, write poems, poetry.
Mm.
It doesn't matter what you write. Write, because guess what? That is the best way to start to learn something, and open yourself up. And one other point that I've noticed is, that there is not a tremendous amount of attention given. And I'm not saying this in a generalized kind of way, but I'm saying that from what I've experienced, not a lot of attention is given to academic rigor in India.
Mm. True, true,
So,
true.
so their concept of academic rigor is, did you take the exam, and what was the grade that you got on the exam?
Mm.
Right? And the exam is all about yes, no, or multiple choice questions and all. You ace that, and you're a subject matter expert. Your head is exploding with all these ideas.
Mm.
But how did you articulate? What kind of paper did you write? How did you
Exactly.
present your ideas?
Mm.
And that comes in academic writing, as you know. You know,
Absolutely.
you have to be very cognizant of APA style,
Mm. Mm.
formatting, putting your ideas together. How are you introducing? Are your ideas connecting in the paper
Mm.
or not? What kind of methodology you're using? How are you relating to the findings in the final chapter? So, a lot of times I find that they don't pay attention to the grammar. They don't pay attention to the structuring of a sentence. They just
Absolutely.
write to fill the paper, send it out, and the faculty member is probably so tired at the end of the day. They'll just look at it and they'll say, "Ye change kar lo ji, wo change kar lo, udhar kar lo." Fix it up and send
Mm,
it out. That kind of stuff will not fly in the most average university in the US. Also,
absolutely.
you would find that your paper is going to come right back. They're going to say, edit it, edit.
Mm,
Okay, so so I think that if I can leave you with a thought and leave your viewers with a thought, it is that this generation is a force to reckon with. You are the future leaders. You know, somebody referred to you guys as the snowflake generation, right? I hate to use the word snowflakes because it's kind of like, it's in my mind it's a pejorative term.
mm,
Okay,
mm, mm.
it's kind of like, okay, so they're so sensitive, they're so thin-skinned, they're so reactive. That No, that is not true. Yes, they are from a different generation. They have different ideas on life. They're very focused about what they want to do, and who they want to be with, who they want to spend their life with, right? Gone are the days when okay,
The
just get
parents
married
are.
to
Mm,
anybody,
mm.
right? Now they want to make sure that the person that they're going to be spending their life with is a worthwhile person who respects them for who they are. Okay, so you guys have a tremendous gift, and I say this from my very direct experience of interacting
Yes.
with so many of you, both professionally and unprofessionally. And when I say outside of the assignments and work groups and stuff that we do, I communicate with a lot, and I find that they're so receptive to new ideas. They're so receptive to growing and
Mm,
transforming and
mm.
becoming better versions of themselves. So,
Just
um,
so my final question to you is how to come
yes,
out of the zone of procrastination and to just begin writing your own research paper. And this comes from like a lot of my friends who wish to write a research paper, but they're just procrastinating because the process of research is very tedious. You have to read a lot, you have to research, then you have to write a lot of things with a proper structure, then there are citations, which style should we choose? There are a lot of things. So how
right.
should really one come out of that zone of procrastination?
The my answer would be attend one of my workshops. Just kidding. Of course, in my workshops, I do talk about that. So sometimes you need a coach, okay, a writing coach. Believe it or not, you're not going to find those writing coaches when you're doing your PhDs or you're doing your MPhils and all that, because the faculty members, A, they don't have the time, B, they don't have the motivation to coach you individually. You need an individual coach. So if you're writing, let's say you want to write a research paper, okay, you don't know the ABC of where you want to start, right? What is it that, how do you capture your ideas? How do you put together an introduction?
Mm,
How do you put together a methodology and designs chapter? How do you put together a literature review, right? And data analysis, data interpretation, and finally the writing chapter, where you, or I say writing, I mean findings, implications, and future,
mm, yeah.
ideas that you want to present. Because sometimes you could be doing a whole study, right?
Mm,
And you have to capture the study in, I don't know how many words, 4,000 words, 4,500 words, or whatever, right? So there's a word limit there.
mm,
And that makes it really difficult because you have to capture
abs-
your ideas and write them cogently without missing out on important stuff out there, right?
Absolutely.
So if a coach can help you go through that, right, in a way that
Mm,
you can present your ideas in a cogent way, right? And a coach can then guide you and say, look, Rasleen, you want to make these changes, think about it. Not suggesting that the coach should be doing the writing for you. A lot of times what happens is people will take on a coach and say, sir, but I am paying you a coaching fee,
Hmm.
why don't you write the paper for me? That's not the job of a coach. A coach is to help you write a paper, right? Help you with ideation, help you with feedback,
Hmm.
right? But not actually do the work for you, because that is crazy.
And how
So,
to, sir, sorry to interrupt you, but how to
no,
filter from like a reliable source and non-reliable source when you're collecting your
ah,
data? Yeah.
yes. So, okay. So, when you say reliable, non-reliable source, meaning,
Because there's
um,
so many things on the internet. So suppose my research topic is social security schemes for women in our country. And when I
hmm,
search about the topic, there are n number of articles, books, relating to the topic. So which things I should really read, because the time is limited, because I have to submit the paper suppose in a week. And so what are the things which I should read and really filter out and then add it in my research paper?
okay. First of all, my best advice to your viewers is stop Googling stuff.
Okay.
The first tendency is, okay, so if I'm going to write a paper, let me Google that, put some
Hmm.
keywords,
Hmm.
and get a few articles. Now, if you want to go to Google, go to Google Scholar.
Hmm.
So type in Google Scholar. Google
Yeah.
Scholar is a different website
Hmm.
where you will see academically relevant, rigorous articles. And while you may see on Google, just straight Google and Wikipedia and all that, all free articles, free stuff, you don't know the reliability of that stuff.
Hmm.
You don't just want to be citing the work of people who are sharing opinions. Opinions is not research.
Hmm. Yes.
So try to understand the difference between just an opinion
Hmm.
or a generalization and research. There's very different. A
Absolutely.
research is you're talking about a subject with authority, either your own authority or you're citing authoritative resources from proper academic resources, not just, okay, the Wikipedia, this, or somebody wrote an opinion piece. I'll
Hmm.
take the opinion piece. So
Hmm.
I guess what I'm saying is that, you know, it's garbage in, garbage out, right? Okay. If you put in garbage into your paper, you're going to get garbage out as the output. But if you spend
Absolutely.
the time, effort, resources, and that's where you need the help and support of mentors, of good
Absolutely.
guides who have written good, solid journal pieces, journal articles that can help
Absolutely.
you get on that track of becoming a better
Absolutely.
scholar, becoming a better version of yourself. So that would be my, and it's not a journey that happens overnight. You know, it's a long journey and a hard one. Okay, if you want to do it correctly, if you want to cut corners, then of course you can go ahead and do what you want. Um, and your work is not going to have meaning. It's not going to have relevance. None of the major journals are going to pick your work if it
Hmm.
is done shoddily, if it is done
Hmm.
sloppily. Right?
Hmm.
But if you put in the effort into constructing and stay with APA style, for a lot of people write really good pieces, but they forget about formatting.
Yeah.
They
Hmm.
don't know how to cite.
Yeah.
They're
That is,
citing somebody. They're paraphrasing somebody, right?
but they're not
But they're not putting
mentioning.
a citation. They
Hmm.
don't mention that person's name. And sometimes what will happen is their entire paper is
Hmm.
all full of citations of others' work. अरे भाई, दूसरों का ही साइट कर रहे हो तो अपने अपने आइडियाज क्या हैं आपके? What are your
Absolutely.
ideas? And it's perfectly okay to paraphrase some author's work
Hmm.
or ideas,
Hmm.
but always cite the person, always give the attribution to the person. Plagiarism is an academic crime. Okay. I cannot overemphasize that. You just have to be careful. The cut and paste masters, you're not going to get anywhere in life. Write, write in your own language.
Hmm.
It's perfectly okay if you don't expect to be writing brilliantly. right? Write in your own language. Write a simple, nicely done paper. Okay,
Structuralized paper, yeah.
structurized paper, and to do that. So that would be some of my thoughts on it.
Yes.
Anything else you'd like me to reflect on?
That is it, sir. Thank you so much
All
for
right. Thank you
coming on
so
the
much. Hey,
podcast. It was
I'm
a very
honored that
enriching,
you.
sir. It was very
Thank
enriching for
you.
me and definitely for my listeners. I'm sure
Thank
once
you.
they get through the entire length of this podcast, they'll come out as a different person and a very well informed person in the field of research for sure.
Thank you. Thank you. And for just from my standpoint, I would say that I really appreciate the effort that you're putting into becoming a thought leader, but not just a thought leader sharing your own thoughts, but also bringing other people together like this and sharing that. That's how a community grows. Okay. So
Absolutely.
keep up the great work and let me know if I can be of any help to yourself
Sure.
or to any of your listeners, your viewers. They
Yes, sir.
can contact you. You have my
Yes,
email
I'll be putting
address.
your
You have
LinkedIn
all.
profile in
Please
my
put my
bio as well.
LinkedIn
Yes, sir.
profile. You can
Definitely, sir.
also put my whatever other information, email or whatever you want to share with them.
Sure,
Please
sir.
go ahead and do that. I'd be very happy to help them. So anybody that's struggling with a master's degree program or just trying to get into a PhD program, because you've got have to write statement of purposes,
Purpose, yes,
right?
sir. Definitely, sir.
Okay, and essays to get into
Hmm.
a good school. So I'd be very happy to help you out on that. All right.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you
So
so
thank
much,
you
sir.
so much for your
Thank you so
time.
much,
I
sir.
appreciate it. Okay.
Thank
Take
you so
care.
much, sir.
Okay.